Hello and welcome to this webinar. This is a short webinar to introduce our new later life navigation tool. Um, I'm Marc Orme. I'm an equity release advisor with Key. The tool's been built really to aid advisors who are trying to help clients over the age of 50 and to navigate some of those early kind of processes that we all go through as advisors. Um, and the tool's really been built so we can kind of agree a suitable path to ensure that we're looking at the right later life options for clients. And in essence, what this really does is brings the affordability element to the front of the process. It'll allow you to look at the type of products that could be available based on income, expenditure, and we'll explore this in a bit more detail as we work through the webinar. Now, as part of that webinar as well, we'll look at a demonstration of the tool and how this works in practice. And it's an important step, really, to navigate the different types of options available to ensure that we're personalising the advice that we provide clients in these circumstances, and to support the customer understanding of really what are the benefits, what are the risks, and what are the costs involved in the different options available. Part of this as well is really to bring this process forward, where the work I do with clients, looking at income and expenditure, can really help me assess the circumstances and the options available prior to that initial meeting, that fact find meeting. And in essence, what that also does is gives me the opportunity to discuss that during that initial fact find meeting to look at what likely options are going to be most suitable based on their income, their affordability, but also their kind of requirements and an understanding of what they want from a product. So this helps us tailor the eligibility and priorities at an early stage, just to ensure we're delivering the correct advice in terms of the product and the options that would be likely available. For anybody who's looking at this from a standalone point of view, you may have a client typically over the age of 50 where you could run this calculation and look at the navigation tool. That will help aid what type of product solutions you can look at yourself as a mortgage advisor, and whether it's appropriate then to look at referring over to a specialist equity release advisor through key partnerships. What we'll do in the next step is look at the navigation tool. So the Navigator tool can be used and found using the URL here. And then what I'll do is I'll take you through this demonstration just to show you how this looks. Okay, so when we come to the website itself, the part we're going to focus on and look at today is the eligibility and priorities. Okay, so we click onto Let's Get Started. The first thing we can do is enter some form of reference or a client name. So for this example, we'll just put through that it's Mr. and Mrs. Test. There are two customers we're going to be looking at. And then we can click on to next steps and we can start to enter some basic information. So what this will allow us to do is enter the client's current age, whether they're currently retired or what the planned retirement age is, and what that age will actually be as well. So based on the scenario we'll look at here is we'll use the details that I've entered as a default, that the customer won £3,000 worth of income, but then their estimated income post-retirement is likely to be £1,500, current age of 55, with a planned retirement age of 67. And we'll copy those details in for client 2 in terms of for this demonstration. But this can be tailored to the specific circumstances of your client. Now, what this also will allow us to do is look at what is the requirements in terms of the borrowing requirement. So we'll say there's a property value of 250,000 and there are requirements of 50,000. And that could be to repay an interest-only mortgage or to remortgage their existing mortgage product, for example. Now, we'll say that the clients have committed sort of gross monthly expenditure of £1,000 per month at this stage as well. And what you'll notice to the right-hand side, this is looking at the client's age, loan to value, and from an affordability point of view, whether standard residential mortgages, whether that's capital repayment interest only, or a retirement interest only, or also a lifetime mortgage may be suitable. Now, what you can see based on this calculation, that actually it's highlighted using the green tabs there, that actually all these products could be available to them. What I'll do just for the demonstration is I'll alter customer one's planned retirement income, and I will reduce that from £1,500 to £500. Okay. One of the things you've noticed now is on the retirement interest only mortgage, this is now changed to say actually from an affordability point of view, a retirement interest only mortgage is unlikely to be available based on that affordability piece. Now we can find more information by toggling this icon just next to the borrowing options available. This will then bring up some additional information and starts to tell you why and where this particular eligibility is falling down in this example. So what we can see is based on that affordability piece, as we recognized earlier, that actually that is the part that means a RIO is unlikely to be available. And that's because it's not looking like it's going to be able to afford ultimately the calculated repayment, ultimately basing this on a stress death that if customer two was to pass away first, could customer one afford those repayments? And the calculation showing you actually no, they can't. And ultimately that's because it's very likely that there is insufficient income available at that stage. Okay. Now, this could obviously vary because you may have clients of different ages, different planned retirement ages, and ultimately pre-income and post-retirement income. So that's something that we do need to take into consideration, but it does give us a guidance to what type of steps or what type of options could be available. If I look at the next steps now, what this is also allowing us to do is saying, well, based on their current level of income and expenditure, actually, what would they be comfortable making repayments? What is the amount they would be comfortable making a monthly repayment of? So I will leave this for now based on the information that's come up as a default amount. Okay. So this is ultimately looking at their committed expenditure at present and also their post-retirement income as well and current income. If I click onto next steps now, what we can also look at is the next part of the demonstration, which is it's great to look at what the customers are going to be entitled eligible for from a eligibility point in terms of affordability, income, expenditure. But the next part of that is really understanding a bit more about what the customer wants to happen during their lifetime and their beliefs around the type of products and what their kind of values are connected to certain factors. So this is a really useful tool to discuss with the clients where you could say, actually, let's take the first question. We are confident that we have sufficient disposable income both now and looking into the future that we can use to make committed monthly payments. Now the customer said, actually, no, I don't think that's going to be an option for us. We really believe that's unsuitable. We may have issues in the future making repayments. So we strongly kind of disagree with that term. What this is now showing us is actually that a lifetime mortgage is likely to be a preferential option based on the customer's priorities. If we can see, if we put that into a number 5, that's now changed that again to say, actually, no, likely the repayment and the retirement interest only mortgage is going to be most suitable. So what I will do is I'll put that back to 3. And what that kind of gives us is actually all these options could be available, providing the eligibility is met. We can work through these with the client, having, discuss the kind of priorities, what might be around the corner, what their retirement plans are there any significant changes to their income expected in the future or expenditure? And we can start to factor these things in. So, I'm going to just take another option. Some clients may want to have the certainty of a fixed interest rate for life. So you don't have that uncertainty and no requirement to maybe revisit it in the future. If that was high priority, you could see that actually a residential mortgage wouldn't be most favourable based on that priority, and unlikely a lifetime mortgage could be most suitable. Again, if we move that to one to show the opposite side, that's kind of moving a lifetime mortgage out of their kind of priorities at this stage, and they would most likely look at a traditional type of mortgage product. So based on answering these questions, we can kind of finish that initial assessment. And I am just for the demonstration, just going to leave them all in the middle. And am I finished now? What we can see is we've got a summary, which is showing the client's details based on their current age, planned retirement age, current and post-retirement income, and also their expenditure. Now, there are some clear assumptions made in the demonstration I've provided, and all this is tailored to your specific client's circumstances. What this then does is produce a kind of detailed kind of output to what their priorities are, and also the product eligibility. So the discussions really for this particular example would be, well, the option for a standard residential mortgage and a comparison with a lifetime mortgage. Okay. You can as well save this output. So this can be saved to a PDF and produces into a really handy report, which you can ultimately show your clients and discuss with them. And that's a very useful tool to be able to demonstrate what you've kind of done in terms of assessing, or should I say, addressing the client's income, expenditure, and the key affordability part to any traditional mortgage type product. But then also looking at what their kind of priorities are around what's happening now and what's likely to happen in the future. So this can be tailored to your client's circumstances at any stage. The output can be great because that gives you, a kind of real piece of documentation that you can load up to the client's folder to show that initial piece you've done around that discussion with the client. So next steps from there, you'll either as a mortgage broker, mortgage advisor, be assessing the suitability, looking at the options of potentially traditional mortgage products. You then have the option to refer to a specialist, somebody like myself, somebody, key partnerships, maybe your existing referral partner, where you could refer clients then to have the discussion around equity release. So I think this is a really useful tool, and hopefully just demonstrating it from an advisor's perspective shows how this works in the real life scenario. For me personally, this is a 2-3 minute task. I'd like to try and do it pre-fact find, pre-initial meeting with a client, just so I can get an understanding based on their income and expenditure that they've shared with me. What are the likely options going to be available to them? I can build on that then during that initial meeting to find out more about their priorities, and that can help me assess what type of product do I think would be most suitable for them, and also for them to kind of think about the suitability of the products for their own circumstances as well. So I hope today's session has been useful. If there are any questions, please feel free to contact the team at Key Partnerships. The information will be provided following this webinar, and ultimately any information you require, access to the navigation tool, support in terms of accessing it, and how to ultimately run a calculation as we've done here, feel free to contact the team in Key Partnerships. Thank you.